The night air was cool as Marcus Wilson adjusted his security uniform and began his patrol around the gas and go station. The clock on the wall showed 11:30 p.m. Most nights at this suburban gas station were quiet, which was exactly why Marcus had taken this job. After 15 years in military police and 2 tours in combat zones, he wanted something predictable. Marcus was 42 years old, with short gray hair and a body that stayed fit through daily workouts. His face showed lines of experience, but his eyes remained alert and watchful. The store manager, Jenny, appreciated his calm presence. Since he started working here 3 months ago, the late-night thefts had stopped completely. "Everything good out there, Marcus?" Jenny called from behind the counter where she was counting cigarette inventory. "All quiet," Marcus replied with a small smile. "Just the way I like it." He continued his walk around the store, checking the back door and making sure the security cameras were working properly. The gas station was located just off the highway, making it popular with travelers and locals alike. At this hour, only a few customers were filling up their tanks or grabbing late-night snacks. Marcus watched an older couple pay for their gas and coffee. They waved at him as they left. He nodded politely in return. This was the routine he had come to enjoy, simple, safe, and without surprises. That changed when he heard the rumble of motorcycles in the distance. At first, it was just a low thunder, but it grew louder until the sound filled the night air. Marcus stepped outside the store entrance and watched as 8 motorcycles roared into the parking lot. The bikes were large and loud, customized with chrome parts that reflected the bright lights of the gas station. The bikers parked their motorcycles in a line, taking up several parking spaces. Marcus noticed how they positioned themselves, blocking one of the exits and making sure they could see anyone who entered or left the store. It was a tactical formation, something Marcus recognized from his training. The riders dismounted and removed their helmets. Their leader was a tall man with a long beard and arms covered in tattoos. He wore a leather vest with patches that Marcus didn't recognize. The others followed his lead, laughing loudly and looking around at the few customers who now seemed nervous. Marcus watched as an elderly man who had been pumping gas quickly finished, got in his car, and drove away without coming inside to get his receipt. A young woman who had been walking toward the store entrance turned around and hurried back to her car. Inside, Jenny looked out the window with concern. She caught Marcus's eye and raised her eyebrows in question. He gave her a small nod to let her know he was watching the situation. The bikers didn't enter the store immediately. Instead, they stood by their motorcycles, smoking cigarettes and looking at the gas station like they were sizing it up. Marcus noticed how their eyes lingered on the security cameras, the door locks, and finally on him. The leader whispered something to the others and they laughed. One of them, a shorter man with a shaved head, spat on the ground and stared directly at Marcus. It was a clear challenge. Marcus had seen this kind of behavior before. He knew they were testing him, seeing how he would react. But Marcus didn't move. He stood calmly at his post, making it clear with his body language that he wasn't intimidated, but also wasn't looking for trouble. After a few minutes, the leader nodded to the others. 3 of them put out their cigarettes and started walking toward the store entrance where Marcus stood. The night that had been so quiet was about to become very interesting. The glass door swung open as 3 bikers entered the gas and go store. Marcus held his position, watching them carefully. The leader walked in first, standing taller than his friends. He had a scar running down his left cheek and cold eyes that scanned the store for cameras. The other 2 bikers followed, spreading out among the aisles in a way that seemed planned. "Evening, gentlemen," Marcus said in a calm, professional voice. "Welcome to Gas and Go." The leader looked at Marcus and smirked. "Well, look at this. They got themselves a real tough guy here." He turned to his friends who laughed on cue. Marcus didn't react to the comment. He simply nodded and said, "Let me know if you need any help finding anything." The tallest biker, who wore a vest with the name Snake stitched on it, moved toward the refrigerated section. He opened the door and grabbed a beer, popping it open right there in the store. The second biker, a muscular man with tattoos covering his neck, walked to the snack aisle and started opening bags of chips, eating some and dropping the rest on the floor. Jenny looked nervously at Marcus from behind the counter. 2 other customers, a young couple, quickly paid for their items and hurried out of the store. Marcus watched the situation developing. These weren't just unruly customers. they were deliberately causing trouble. The leader stood near the entrance, watching Marcus's reaction, testing his limits. Store policy says no open containers inside, Marcus said, pointing to the open beer. And we need to pay for items before opening them. His voice remained even and professional. Snake took a long drink from the beer and then let it drop to the floor. The bottle didn't break, but beer spilled across the clean tile. Oops, he said with a grin. Guess I'll need to get another one. The leader walked closer to Marcus. You gonna clean that up, rent-a-cop? That's your job, right? Marcus didn't move. My job is security. Your job as customers is to respect the store and other people in it. The leader's smile disappeared. Are you telling me what to do? He moved closer until he was just a few inches from Marcus's face. Marcus could smell alcohol on his breath. I'm just explaining store policy, Marcus replied, standing his ground. You're welcome to shop here, but I need to ask you to respect the property. The third biker, who had been quiet until now, knocked a display of candy bars to the floor. Policy this, policy that. What are you gonna do about it, old man? Jenny picked up the phone behind the counter, her hand trembling slightly. The leader noticed her and pointed. Put that phone down, lady, unless you want trouble. Marcus stepped between the leader and the counter. That's enough. I'm going to have to ask you all to leave now. The leader laughed and pushed Marcus's shoulder. Or what? You gonna call the real cops? Marcus didn't push back. Instead, he stood firmly, his eyes locked on the leader's. I'd prefer not to involve police. I'm asking you politely to leave the store. What the bikers didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any security guard. His calm didn't come from fear or uncertainty. It came from years of handling much more dangerous situations in combat zones. He was assessing the threat level, positioning himself strategically, and planning 3 moves ahead. The leader sensed something in Marcus's steady gaze that made him hesitate. For a brief moment, doubt crossed his face. Then, trying to save face in front of his friends, he reached out and knocked over a small rack of magazines near the counter. We'll leave when we're good and ready, the leader said, raising his voice. And maybe we'll take some stuff with us. What do you think about that, tough guy? The other bikers outside were now watching through the windows. Marcus noticed they were getting restless, with 2 more heading toward the entrance. Jenny looked terrified behind the counter. There was a silent alarm button under the register that Marcus had shown her how to use during his first week. He caught her eye and gave a small nod. She understood and slowly moved her hand beneath the counter. The leader noticed the exchange of glances. What's going on here? You two got something planned? His hand moved toward his back pocket, and Marcus immediately recognized the movement. The man was reaching for something, and it probably wasn't his wallet. The situation was about to escalate beyond simple intimidation. The leader's hand moved to his back pocket, and Marcus reacted instantly. Years of training took over as he shifted his stance, creating distance while maintaining balance. He didn't reach for a weapon, he didn't carry one as a security guard, but his body was ready. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a new edge that made the leader pause. Outside, the remaining bikers sensed the change in atmosphere. 2 more entered the store, bringing the total inside to 5. They spread out, creating a half circle around Marcus. The store suddenly felt much smaller. You know what, rent-a-cop? The leader said, his hand still hovering near his pocket. I don't like your attitude. Maybe we need to teach you some respect. Jenny had successfully pressed the silent alarm. She stood behind the counter, her face pale but determined. Marcus knew police response time to this location was about 8 minutes. He needed to control the situation until then. Look around you, Marcus said calmly, gesturing to the ceiling. There are 6 cameras recording everything that happens in this store. Whatever you're thinking of doing, it's not worth the trouble it will bring. The biker with the neck tattoos laughed. We can take care of the cameras after we take care of you. And the witnesses? Marcus asked, nodding toward Jenny and a frightened teenage boy who had been browsing magazines in the corner. The leader studied Marcus more carefully now. Something about the security guard's confidence didn't fit with the usual rent-a-cops they intimidated at gas stations. Most security guards were either young kids working their first job or older men counting days until retirement. This guy was different. You talk tough for someone who's outnumbered 5-1, the leader said, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Snake, who had been quiet for a moment, suddenly recognized something. "Wait a minute, boss. Look at his stance. This guy's military." The leader's eyes narrowed as he took in Marcus's posture and calm demeanor. "That true? You a soldier, rent a cop?" "Military police." 15 years, Marcus replied simply. "But that's not important right now. What's important is that you gentlemen have a choice to make in the next 30 seconds. Something in his tone made even the most aggressive bikers pause. Marcus wasn't threatening them. He was stating a fact. "Police are already on their way," Marcus continued. "You can leave now, no harm done, or you can stay and deal with assault charges, attempted robbery, and whatever else they find when they search you and your bikes." The leader's face hardened. "You think I'm scared of cops?" "I think you're smarter than you're acting right now," Marcus replied. "You got people depending on you." He nodded toward the other bikers. "Make the right call." A tense silence filled the store. The leader seemed torn between backing down and escalating further. His pride pushed one way, but self-preservation pulled another. Outside, the sound of a distant siren broke the standoff. It might not even be responding to their situation, but it was enough to tip the scales. "This isn't over," the leader growled, backing toward the door. He pointed at Marcus. "I'm gonna remember your face." "I'll remember yours too," Marcus said evenly, "which means you should probably find another gas station from now on." The leader's face flushed with anger, but the approaching siren grew louder. He nodded to his crew, and they began filing out of the store, knocking over displays as they went. Marcus stayed perfectly still, watching them leave. The last biker, the one with neck tattoos, spat on the floor near Marcus's feet before joining his friends. Through the windows, Marcus watched them mount their motorcycles. The leader glared at the store once more before putting on his helmet. With a roar of engines, the bikers peeled out of the parking lot, disappearing into the night just as red and blue lights became visible in the distance. Jenny let out a long, shaky breath. "How did you stay so calm?" Marcus finally allowed his shoulders to relax slightly. "Because they weren't the scariest thing I've faced." He turned to her with a small smile. "But they might come back. Next time, they'll bring more friends." The police car pulled into the parking lot, and Marcus walked toward the door to greet them. This wasn't over. It was just the end of round one. 2 days passed without any sign of the bikers. The gas and go returned to its normal routine, but the tension remained. Marcus doubled his patrols around the building and parking lot. Jenny had called the store owner, who installed 2 additional security cameras outside. "You think they'll come back?" Jenny asked Marcus as they watched the morning shift arrive. "They might," Marcus replied honestly. "Men like that don't like losing face." He checked his watch. His shift was over, but he lingered, scanning the road beyond the parking lot. That night, Marcus returned for his regular shift. The evening was busier than usual, with customers filling their tanks before an approaching storm. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and occasional flashes of lightning lit up the sky. Around 10:30 p.m., the storm hit. Rain poured down, driving most customers away. Only a few cars remained in the parking lot as people waited for the worst to pass. Marcus completed his indoor patrol and stood by the entrance, watching rainwater flood the parking lot. A flash of lightning revealed a line of headlights approaching on the highway. As they drew closer, Marcus recognized the familiar rumble of motorcycles, even through the storm. His body tensed as he counted. Not 8 bikes this time, but 12. "Jenny," Marcus called calmly to the cashier. "Call the police now. Tell them our friends are back with reinforcements." Jenny nodded and reached for the phone. Before she could dial, the power went out. The store plunged into darkness for a moment before emergency lights kicked on, casting everything in a dim glow. "Perfect timing," Marcus muttered. He knew this was no coincidence. Someone had cut the power. The motorcycles pulled into the parking lot, their riders completely soaked from the rain. The leader was easy to spot. He walked ahead of the others, heading straight for the entrance. Behind him, 2 bikers carried metal baseball bats. Marcus turned to the 3 customers taking shelter in the store, an elderly couple and a truck driver. "There's a storage room in the back. Please go there now and lock the door." The truck driver, a large man with a beard, hesitated. "You need help, buddy?" Marcus appreciated the offer but shook his head. "Thank you, but it's better if you stay safe. Jenny will show you the way." As Jenny led the customers to the back, Marcus moved to block the entrance. Through the glass door, you could see the bikers spreading out, surrounding the building. The leader approached with 5 others, leaving the rest to watch the exits. The door swung open, and rain blew in along with the leader and his crew. They were soaking wet but full of menace. "Remember me?" the leader asked, water dripping from his leather vest. "I do," Marcus replied calmly. "I also remember suggesting you find another gas station." The leader grinned, revealing a gold tooth. "We thought about that, but then we decided this place needs new management." He looked around at the dim emergency lights. "Seems like you're having power problems. Bad night to be without your cameras." Marcus noticed that the bikers had positioned themselves strategically around the store. 2 blocked the main exit, while the others spread out, covering different angles. The leader had clearly planned this return carefully. "The police are already on their way," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure if Jenny had completed the call before the power went out. "Even if that's true," the leader replied, "they'll have trouble getting here in this storm. Roads are flooding." He nodded to one of his men who locked the front door and pulled down the security gate. "We got plenty of time to settle our business." A larger biker with a shaved head stepped forward, slapping a baseball bat against his palm. "Boss says you're ex-military police. Let's see how tough you really are." The leader held up his hand, stopping his friend. "Not yet, Diesel. First, we need to find the lady and anyone else hiding in here." He turned to Marcus. "Where are they?" Marcus remained silent, his eyes never leaving the leader's face. "Search the place," the leader ordered. 2 bikers moved toward the back of the store, where Jenny and the customers were hiding. Marcus knew he needed to act now. The situation was escalating beyond simple intimidation. These men had come prepared for violence. With the power out and the storm raging outside, help might not arrive in time. As one of the bikers passed close to him, Marcus made his decision. It was time to show these men exactly why they had chosen the wrong security guard to mess with. As the biker with the baseball bat moved past him toward the back of the store, Marcus made his move. In one fluid motion, he grabbed the bat, twisted it from the surprised biker's hands, and pushed him away with enough force to send him crashing into a display of chips. "Nobody's going to the back room," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. The room fell silent. Even the leader looked shocked at Marcus's sudden action and the skill with which he had disarmed one of their strongest members. "You just made a big mistake," the leader growled, reaching into his jacket. Marcus knew what was coming. As the leader pulled out a switchblade, Marcus stepped forward instead of back. This unexpected move caught the leader off guard. Before he could react, Marcus had grabbed his wrist, applied pressure to a nerve point, and twisted. The knife clattered to the floor as the leader grunted in pain. "Listen carefully," Marcus said, still holding the leader's wrist in a painful grip. "I don't want to hurt any of you, but I will if I have to." The other bikers looked at each other, uncertain. This wasn't going according to plan. Their leader was supposed to be intimidating the security guard, not the other way around. "Get him!" the leader shouted through gritted teeth. 2 bikers rushed forward. Marcus released the leader with a push and turned to face the new threat. The first biker swung wildly. Marcus stepped inside the punch, used the man's momentum against him, and sent him sprawling across the floor. The second attacker hesitated just long enough for Marcus to deliver a precise strike to his solar plexus. The biker doubled over, struggling to breathe. The entire sequence took less than 5 seconds. 15 years military police, Marcus said, returning to his calm stance. 2 tours in combat zones. 6 years training in close quarters combat. He looked at each of the remaining bikers. "Anyone else want to try?" The leader had recovered his balance and was rubbing his wrist. His face was red with rage and embarrassment. "There are 12 of us and 1 of you," he snarled. "True," Marcus replied. "But look at your 3 friends on the floor. How many are you willing to sacrifice?" A flash of lightning illuminated the store, followed by a crack of thunder that shook the windows. In that brief moment of brightness, the bikers could see Marcus clearly. There was no fear in his eyes, no uncertainty in his stance. This was a man who had faced far worse than a group of bikers in a gas station. The leader seemed to sense this. His confidence wavered as he realized they had severely underestimated their opponent. Suddenly, the back door burst open. The truck driver who had taken shelter in the storage room charged in, wielding a heavy flashlight. Behind him came 2 police officers, their weapons drawn. Police. Everyone on the ground now. The bikers froze, caught between the armed officers and Marcus. The leader looked at Marcus with hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over," he whispered. "Yes, it is," Marcus replied. "You just don't know it yet." As the police ordered everyone to the floor, Marcus noticed something unusual about one of the officers. He wasn't from the local force. His uniform was different, and he moved with the practiced precision of someone with special training. While the local officer began handcuffing the bikers, the other one approached Marcus. "Marcus Wilson?" he asked quietly. Marcus nodded, surprised. "Lieutenant James Reeves, State Police Gang Task Force. We've been tracking this crew for months." He glanced at the bikers being cuffed. "These aren't just troublemakers. They're part of a larger organization involved in drug trafficking and extortion." Marcus understood now why they had returned with reinforcements. This wasn't just about wounded pride. The gas and go was likely on their route for some criminal operation. "We got here as fast as we could when dispatch reported the disturbance," Reeves continued. "You handled yourself well." Marcus nodded as the police led the bikers away. The leader glared at him one last time before being pushed into a police car. The storm continued outside, but inside the gas and go, the worst had passed. For now. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of the gas and go, washing away the darkness of the previous night. Marcus sat in a plastic chair near the coffee counter, giving his official statement to Lieutenant Reeves. The store was closed for cleanup, with workers replacing broken displays and mopping floors. "So you recognized their tactics right away?" Reeves asked, jotting notes in a small notebook. Marcus nodded. The way they positioned themselves, how they isolated targets. It wasn't random. They'd done this before. "You're right about that," Reeves confirmed, showing Marcus a tablet with photos of the biker gang. "The Iron Serpents. They control a drug distribution network across 3 counties. That leader you confronted is Ray Mercer, wanted in 2 states. Marcus studied the photos. There were mug shots of several bikers he recognized from last night, along with surveillance images of others he hadn't seen. "We've been building a case against them for months," Reeves continued. "Last night gave us enough to charge Mercer with attempted assault, carrying concealed weapons, and criminal trespassing. The bigger charges will come later." Jenny approached with fresh coffee for both men. Her hands were steadier today, though dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept much. "The owner called," she told Marcus. "He wants to meet with you this afternoon. I think he's planning something special to thank you." Marcus shook his head. "Just doing my job." Reeves smiled. "Most security guards would have called in sick after the first encounter. You stood your ground." The bell above the door jingled as a delivery man entered with a large bouquet of flowers. "Delivery for Marcus Wilson." Marcus looked surprised as Jenny signed for the flowers and brought them over. The card read, "Thank you for protecting our grandmother last night, the Thompsons." "The elderly couple from the storage room," Jenny explained. "Turns out they're well known in the community. Mr. Thompson is a retired judge." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention but appreciated the gesture. As he set the flowers aside, his phone buzzed with a text message from a number he didn't recognize. "We should talk. Important information about last night. Meet at Franklin Park, 3 p.m., Sam." He showed the message to Reeves, who looked concerned. "Who's Sam?" "No idea," Marcus replied, "but I intend to find out." After finishing his statement, Marcus helped with the cleanup until it was time to meet the store owner. Mr. Paddle arrived in a shiny black car, dressed in a business suit that seemed out of place in the small gas station. "Mr. Wilson," Paddle said, extending his hand. "I want to personally thank you for protecting my business and my employees." Marcus shook his hand. "Just doing what you hired me to do, sir." Paddle laughed. "I hired you to check for shoplifters and make sure no one falls asleep in the bathroom, not to fight off a gang of criminals." He gestured for Marcus to follow him to his car, where he opened the trunk and removed a small box. "This is for you," Paddle said, handing it to Marcus. "It's a bonus, and something else I think you'll appreciate." Inside the box was an envelope containing a check and a small silver badge with Head of Security engraved on it. "I want you to oversee security for all 5 of my stores in this region," Paddle explained. You'll train other guards, implement new protocols, and your salary will double. Marcus stared at the badge, conflicted. The offer was generous, but something felt wrong. The timing of the mysterious text message, the quick resolution with the bikers, it seemed too neat, too finished. "Can I think about it?" Marcus asked. Paddle looked surprised but nodded. "Of course. Take the weekend." As they wrapped up their conversation, Marcus noticed a dark car parked across the street. The driver was watching the gas station intently. When he saw Marcus looking, the car pulled away quickly. Marcus memorized the license plate before it disappeared around the corner. His instincts told him this wasn't over. The bikers had been arrested, but something bigger was still in motion. At 2:45 p.m., Marcus headed toward Franklin Park, his senses on high alert. Whoever Sam was, Marcus would be ready for whatever information, or trap, awaited him. Franklin Park was nearly empty when Marcus arrived. A few mothers watched their children on the playground, and an old man fed pigeons from a bench. Marcus scanned the area, looking for anyone who might be Sam. He chose a bench with a clear view of all park entrances and sat down, keeping his back to a large oak tree. At exactly 3:00 p.m., his phone buzzed with another text. "Blue cap, red backpack, coming from the west entrance." Marcus spotted him immediately, a young man in his 20s, thin and nervous-looking, wearing exactly what the text described. The man walked slowly, constantly checking over his shoulder. When he saw Marcus, he hesitated before approaching. "Are you Marcus Wilson?" the young man asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded. "And you're Sam?" The young man sat beside Marcus, keeping distance between them. "My real name is Eric. I used Sam in case someone saw your phone." He fidgeted with the straps of his backpack. "I was part of the Iron Serpents. Not a full member, just a prospect." Marcus studied Eric carefully. He had the jittery look of someone who hadn't slept in days. A fading bruise marked his left cheek. "Why contact me?" Marcus asked. Eric looked around nervously before continuing. "What happened at the gas station? That wasn't just about intimidation or showing off. The Serpents have been using gas stations along Highway 16 for their distribution network. Your gas and go was supposed to be the next one." "Distribution of what?" "Pills, mostly. Fake prescriptions. They pay gas station employees to accept special packages and hold them for certain customers." Eric's hands trembled slightly. "Ray Mercer, a leader you faced. You wanted to get someone at your station on payroll. When you interfered the first time, it became personal for him." Marcus thought about Jenny and the other employees. Someone might have been approached already. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked, still suspicious. Eric pulled up his sleeve, revealing a badly infected needle mark. "I got hooked on their product. When I couldn't pay, they made me work it off. I've done things I can't take back." His eyes welled with tears. "After they got arrested, I grabbed what cash I could and ran. But they'll find me eventually." "You should talk to the police," Marcus suggested. Lieutenant Reeves wooled. "No police." Eric interrupted, panic in his voice. "The Serpents have people inside the department. That's how they've avoided major busts for years." Marcus frowned. "Lieutenant Reeves is state police, not local." "Doesn't matter. They have connections everywhere." Eric pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "This is a list of their drop points and the names of gas station employees they've paid off. Your station is on there too, someone named Carlos." Marcus recognized the name. Carlos was the new night shift attendant who had started 2 weeks ago. "There's something else," Eric continued, lowering his voice even further. "Ray won't be in jail long. His cousin is a big-shot lawyer who always gets them out, and when he's free, they'll come for you first." A child's scream from the playground made Eric jump. Though it was just a kid playing, Eric's reaction showed how terrified he truly was. "They know I took money," Eric said, standing suddenly. "I need to keep moving. But I wanted to warn you, what happened at the gas station was just the beginning." "Wait," Marcus said, reaching for his phone. "Let me help you. There are programs for." Eric backed away. "No programs, no help. Just watch your back and check that list. The Serpents have a shipment coming tomorrow night, their biggest ever." He turned and hurried toward the park exit. Marcus watched him go, the folded paper heavy in his hand. He opened it carefully, finding names, addresses, and dates, including tomorrow's date with Gas and Go, midnight circled in red. As Eric disappeared from view, Marcus noticed a black SUV slowly driving past the park. The driver was watching Eric, not Marcus. The SUV pulled away from the curb, following the young man. Marcus quickly took a photo of the list with his phone, then headed for his car. He needed to verify this information before taking it to Reeves. If Eric was telling the truth, the Gas and Go wasn't just a gas station. It was about to become the center of something much more dangerous. And Marcus had less than 36 hours to prepare. The night air felt electric as Marcus sat in his car across the street from the Gas and Go. The clock on his dashboard showed 11:30 p.m. 2. Marcus had spent the past day carefully planning. First, he verified Carlos's involvement by checking security footage, which showed the night attendant accepting packages from men on motorcycles last week. Then, after much consideration, Marcus had called Lieutenant Reeves. "You sure about this information?" Reeves had asked when they met in a diner far from the police station. "Sure enough to be sitting here," Marcus had replied, sliding Eric's list across the table. Now, Reeves and his trusted team were positioned around the gas station, hidden in unmarked vehicles. Marcus's earpiece crackled. "All units in position." Reeves's voice came through. "Wilson, you're clear to move in." Marcus got out of his car and walked toward the store, dressed in his regular security uniform. Through the windows, he could see Carlos working alone at the counter, nervously checking his watch. The bell jingled as Marcus entered. Carlos looked up, surprise and fear flashing across his face. "Marcus, I thought Johnson was covering tonight." "Change of plans," Marcus replied calmly, moving to his usual spot near the entrance. "Manager asked me to fill in." Carlos swallowed hard and turned away, pretending to organize items under the counter. Marcus knew he was probably texting a warning to his contacts. At 11:45, a delivery truck pulled into the lot. This wasn't part of the Gas and Go's regular deliveries. The driver, a large man with a beard, brought in a stack of boxes labeled cleaning supplies. "Special delivery for Carlos," the man said, not making eye contact with Marcus. Carlos hurried to sign for the packages, his hands shaking. "I'll put these in the back," he said quickly. Marcus watched as Carlos carried the boxes to the storage room. Through his earpiece, he heard Reeves. "We've got eyes on the storage room. He's opening the packages." Confirmed, they contained pill bottles, not cleaning supplies. At midnight exactly, the familiar rumble of motorcycles approached. But something was different. Marcus counted only 4 bikes, not the dozen he expected, and their leader, Ray Mercer, was not among them. The bikers parked and entered the store, ignoring Marcus completely. They headed straight for the counter where Carlos had returned. "Packages ready?" one biker asked Carlos. "In the back," Carlos replied, glancing nervously at Marcus. "But he's not supposed to be here tonight." The bikers finally acknowledged Marcus, looking him over with hostile expressions. The apparent leader, a tall man with a silver chain around his neck, stepped forward. "You're the one who caused trouble for Ray," he said. "He sends his regards." Marcus tensed, ready for an attack, but the biker simply smiled. "He said to tell you he's looking forward to meeting you again. Soon." Something felt wrong. This was too easy, too calm. Where were the other bikers? Where was Ray Mercer? The answer came through his earpiece. "Wilson, we got a problem. Ray Mercer was spotted 5 minutes ago at your apartment building. It's a diversion." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. While he was here waiting for the drug shipment, Mercer was targeting his home. "Go," Reeves ordered through the earpiece. "We got this covered. Teams are already heading to your location." As Marcus turned to leave, the biker called after him. "Running away? Ray said you were tougher than that." Marcus ignored the taunt and rushed to his car. The drive to his apartment building was the longest 15 minutes of his life. When he arrived, police cars already surrounded the building, lights flashing. Lieutenant Reeves's second-in-command, Officer Torres, met him in the parking lot. "We got him," Torres said with a smile. "Mercer and 2 others. They were waiting in your apartment with weapons. Neighbor called it in when she heard them breaking your door." Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "The gas station?" 6 arrests total, We seized over 50,000 pills and records of their entire distribution network. Torres patted Marcus's shoulder. It's over. The Iron Serpents are finished in this county. 2 officers led Ray Mercer past them in handcuffs. The biker leader locked eyes with Marcus, his face twisted with hatred. This ain't over, Mercer spat. Not by a long shot. Marcus watched calmly as Mercer was placed in a police car. For you, it is, he said quietly. 1 week later, Marcus stood in Mr. Paddle's office, accepting the position as head of security for all 5 gas stations. As he pinned on his new badge, Marcus knew that his quiet security job had turned into something much more important. Sometimes, the right person in the right place could make all the difference. The bikers had indeed messed with the wrong security guard.